Yeah.
So, but this is the point, Lawrence. It's never been easier to get rich.
I would agree with you. I would agree with you.
To start this thing, it took brain power, took money. It
Yeah.
took a lot of frickin' hard work. It took yelling and screaming and raising capital and doing dog and pony shows.
Yeah.
All you have to do is buy one frickin' Bitcoin and you got it made.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's what's going to happen. I mean, Michael Saylor thinks that Bitcoin's going to 13 million a coin, and I agree with him. Now, that's going to take many, many, many years, but you can buy that coin today for $100,000. I mean, as you know, like in the gold mining business, and as you point out, with any other company investment, even with Amazon, they had a management team that could have screwed it up. I mean, the mathematical protocol behind Bitcoin, has now been time tested for almost 900,000 blocks in 16 years. And I don't think it can get screwed up. I think we just sit back and watch it increase in value. So, if you're an artist or, you have a different craft, I mean, you don't have to suddenly have a financial advisor. You can just put your money in Bitcoin, forget about it, and know that every year you'll gain in value. It's kind of an amazing leveler of the financial system and the notion that average people can front run Wall Street and all these financial geniuses. I mean, I went to Harvard Business School and I've tried to interest them. I said, guys, this is the most revolutionary monetary development in the last 2,000 years. And, I know some of the students there and they've got a club and it's like 3 people. I sent it to the dean and he said, well, that's an interesting book, but and I proposed that we have a debate about it up on stage, and they haven't followed up. They're not interested. And I'm like, you're missing it. You're just missing an enormous change. And it came from the grassroots. It came from just average people understanding what this is, and it's going to continue.
Yeah, the thing I like about Bitcoin is you don't have to be smart.
No.
You got to be smart to go to Harvard, and
Trump. I can debate that because I looked at some of my classmates. I may take the other side of that, but you got to be smart on paper to get in. Yeah.
But anyway. That's the whole thing. It's the greatest advantage I've ever seen.
Yeah,
and I'll
really
repeat it again because every Bitcoiner says the same words.
Yeah.
I should have bought more.
Yeah. I bought a handful of coins in 2014, and I wish I'd bought more. And I kept buying, of course, but those were $300 a coin. Kind of looks cheap now. And to be fair, I mean, in 10 or 20 years, there are going to be people, our relatives and others, who are going to say, hang on a sec, you mean to tell me you got an entire Bitcoin? I mean, think about it this way. Here's an interesting model. We think there are about 45, maybe 50 million people in the world who are millionaires. I think it might be higher than that. But there are only 21 million Bitcoin in the world, and some of them have been lost, and some of them are locked up, at MicroStrategy and so forth. And so every millionaire in the world can't even own one Bitcoin, right? I mean, they can own half a Bitcoin if we distribute them evenly. And by the way, they're not distributed evenly. So, you own one Bitcoin, you're almost guaranteed to be a millionaire as this whole thing unfolds. And I think you're going to be much more than that. So
you don't have to be smart.
No. You got to be willing to think outside of the box, and you've got to be smart enough not to sell. I mean, there'll be a lot of mistakes people will make, Robert. I mean, it'll go up, they'll double, and they'll think, oh, I got a profit, I got to take it. They'll be, hanging on to it and being patient. It's not simple.
No, I met my friends. They sold their Bitcoin to go take a vacation. I said, that's going to be the most expensive vacation you've ever taken.
Ever. I've met guys who were mining it on Apple basic Apple computers back in, 10 and 11, and they had 10,000 Bitcoin. It got to $2. They were young kids and they needed a car, and they sold it all to buy a $20,000 car. And think about what 10,000 Bitcoin is worth today. You'd be a billionaire. I mean, it's just, there's never been anything like this. And so people need to get their heads around it. And I will say the book, I think, does a nice job of doing that. I mean, the first part is all about the problem of how we're being screwed. But the second part really is quite hopeful, and it's the solution. And that part, too, I've tried to make it very easy. I mean, I used my wife as the reader test because she's not a financial person. She's a writer. And I said, do you understand this? And she said, yeah, I do, but you should make this simpler. You should, there's a chapter in there called Skepticism, where I tried to point out that this is a technological development, right? It's a new technology, digital immutable scarcity. And so I tried to point out, and I said, look, I mean, when cars came out, everyone thought they were dangerous. When electricity, there's a great cartoon in there. When electricity came out, everyone thought everyone was going to get electrocuted. But, imagine a world without electricity and cars, and so there's a lot of skepticism around this whole thing. But once you kind of peel back the layers, you realize that it's truly an invention that's important. And I think it represents the future of money. I mean, I've said many times, I think my children and grandchildren will price things in Satoshis, and the dollar will be kind of an ancient thing that, it'll be like the denarius, the Roman coin that was used in Rome. So, we'll just have to see. But I feel pretty strongly about it, and I've studied it for quite some time.
I want to say that, we make no we're an education system. We're not recommending it. I definitely make no commissions over selling.
No, neither do I. And everyone should consider their own situation, and nobody should put more in it than they can afford the volatility. Yeah. I mean, one thing I think some Bitcoiners, a mistake they make is just say, hey, take all your money and put it in this. No, that's not true. Because it does go up and down a lot. It is volatile. And so when I'm talking to a friend and saying, put some money in Bitcoin, I always say, be sure that what you put in there, you can live with a drawdown of 50%, because I've lived with 5 of those, and they're no fun. But I know it's, they go to higher highs after each drawdown. And by the way, I've used the drawdowns to buy more. So
I should have bought more.
Exactly. I mean, it was at 15,000 as recently as a few years ago, and I was buying more, but I didn't have anything else to sell to buy more with.
So anyway, we make no recommendations, but I just cannot believe how easy it's gotten for people to get rich. But that is the future. It's possible.
Yes.
It's possible.
Yes. And but it requires if you casually buy it just based on somebody's recommendation, then it moves around, you're going to sell it. So you need to read my book, and you need to read some of the other books on it, like the Bitcoin Standard by Safe and others, to really deeply understand what we're talking about here. And then once you've seen it clearly, you'll come back with a conviction that, like, okay, I get it. My grandkids are going to inherit this, and they're going to be rich.
Yeah. So one last question I have for you before we go on. You mentioned in this book here, the big print, the fourth turning.
Yeah.
I thought that was a beautiful analysis. Like Jim Rogers says, history proves people don't learn from history. We've been here before.
Oh, we have. Yeah.
They've printed money before. When they printed money in Germany, Hitler came to power.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? That's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're there right now again. So what do you see relative to the fourth turning? What do you see with this?
Yeah. So fourth turnings occur. That's Howe and Strauss wrote a book by that title. It suggests that every 80 to 100 years, all the rules of society change substantially. I think that's what's going on right now. I think our monetary system is going to change substantially. I think this fourth turning began in 2008 with a GFC, which was really a big crisis, financial crisis. These things typically last 10 to 30 years or 20 to 30 years. 20 years from '08 is 2028. That's 3 years from now. I don't think it'll be over by then. 2038 is 30 years. I don't think it'll take that long. I think in the next 10 years, the monetary system is going to substantially change, and that we're going to have the failure or severe inflation in fiat currencies, and the political backdrop is going to be that people are going to demand that we go back to the sound money standard that created America, which was the greatest nation in the world in 1946. 1946, we were on the gold standard. We stood at the top of the world. And after that, things began to deteriorate. And, they deteriorated because we drifted away from first principles. First principle is sound money is important. And the book talks about that. I mean, in fact, there's a chapter in there that sound money is a moral issue. And I believe it is. It's written about in the Bible, honest weights and measures. I mean, sound money is written into our Constitution. Only gold and silver can be money. But what happened is that politicians, with their egos and their lust for power, have led us away from that basic principle. And in so doing, we're now in this big damn mess. And so what's got to happen is the honest remnant of this country, the God-fearing, hardworking, honest people that make this country run, have got to rise up. And we're going to do it. I mean, we are going to do it, Robert. I am absolutely convinced. But the only way we're going to do it is if we all read books like this and understand the issue clearly, so that we know who the enemy is and we know how to fight him to make things better. So that's my sales pitch.
So I gotta have you back on, because we can go forever. But the book is the big print. But the reason I said has it happened yet? Because it happens throughout history.
Right.
And this is the point I'm bringing up. The story about them when the woman in Germany had a wheelbarrow full of money.
Yes.
And people get all enthused. Oh, a wheelbarrow full of money. And they think, but that wheelbarrow full of money was the cause of Adolf Hitler coming to power. That's exactly right. That's the fourth turning. That's exactly right. It brings about some bad things in society, unfortunately. But we can short circuit that if we return to a sound monetary system
And that's what guys like you and, so many of us have been fighting for that for years. And I think we just have to spread that message. And I applaud the work you're doing and doing it. And, somewhere along the line here, I decided to pick up my, oar and start rowing. I'm trying to do the same thing.
Well, we'll row together, my friend.
We'll row together. Exactly.
So Lawrence, thanks very much. I've gone over time, and all the listeners out there, we'll have you back on. This is a subject. This is the creature from Jekyll Island. I study it like a wild man.
Yeah.
But that's what happens now. And remember, that wheelbarrow full of money led to Adolf Hitler.
It was a bad thing.
That's what I'm afraid of this title here.
It's a very bad thing. Yeah, they're going to print a lot of money, and that's not a good thing.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you very much, Robert. Really great to be with you.
And we'll be right back for the final words. Thank you, Lawrence.